On the outside, the Brown family appeared unstoppable, a vast polygamist empire living the American dream. Large houses, smiling kids, and a patriarch who promised riches, stability, and cohesion. But behind the doors, behind the cameras, the reality was much bleaker. A secret debt, covert loans, and financial manipulation were threatening to bring down everything they had constructed. The empire wasn't only cracking, it was slowly disintegrating beneath a mound of lies. And the ones who knew the truth? Their own children. For years, viewers saw Cody Brown as a committed family man, a vision-driven patriarch leading his wives and kids towards stability and prosperity. The Vegas houses, the Flagstaff relocation, and the vision of Coyote Pass presented the portrait of a man constructing a dynasty. But as would be discovered later on by Gwen and Mikey, the truth is far from the rosy image televised. The Brown family's finances, though appearing strong, were a house of cards. Every move Cody made, every extravagant buy, every piece of property purchased was made at the cost of financial security. Behind the TV camera's veil of secrecy, the family empire was already tottering, with hidden loans, over-leveraging in properties, and a complex system of accounts aimed at masking the truth. Then came Robyn, the wife who unknowingly hastened the crash. Her presence changed the money equation, adding a new level of complexity. From insider accounts, Robyn's kids had access to resources denied systematically to the other wives and their children. Designer vacations, high-end clothing, and costly educational expenditures flowed freely in her direction, bankrolled from the family accounts. At the same time, Christine and Janelle, the first wives, were left to maintain their homes on limited incomes, sometimes having to forego their own aspirations in order to keep their families going. And this was only the beginning. The books Gwen and Mikey supposedly found unveil a shocking pattern. Money was being diverted, accounts were cooked, and one family's needs were being sacrificed totally for another. The question is, how long could such a ruse last before it all came crashing down? Cody's choices were not arbitrary, they were painstakingly arranged. The family LLC, put in place to administer and safeguard common property, was used as a vehicle for one-sided action. Coyote Pass, the showcase property that was supposed to bring the family together under a common vision, became an investment pit. A private loan, secreted without the knowledge of Christine, Janelle, or Mary, saddled the property with double-digit interest and imminent balloon payments. Each month, the family's income was siphoned, not towards infrastructure, not towards development, but only to pay interest on a predatory loan that no one else knew they were taking. The financial abuse cannot be overemphasized from a psychological point of view. Robyn, being the newest wife, was dependent on Cody to maintain her position and life that justified where she stood within the family. Cody, spurred by ego and pride, gambled further on extravagance to maintain the illusion of success, even as debt accumulated and other wives' dreams quietly evaporated. The daughters recount witnessing firsthand how their mothers gave up everything, time, energy, and personal aspirations, to watch family resources reallocated to finance Robyn and Cody's vision of opulence. Picture this: growing up in a home where hard work is instilled, but each dollar you make or save is eclipsed by another kid's lavish spending. Not only was it unfair, it was a calculated, methodical breach of trust. The initial signs of breakdown were subtle but present. Extravagant shopping, a constant balance on credit cards, and the increasing weight of loans amounted to an unspoken strain on the family. Janelle, ever the voice of reason, insisted on budgets and planning. She made spreadsheets, got contractor estimates, and attempted to chart some course of action for the family. Cody shot her down, speaking in circles regarding unity, God's timing, and the vision of the family's grand future. In reality, there wasn't any money for infrastructure at Coyote Pass. All of it was being drained to keep up appearances of money in Robyn's mansion, a golden cage constructed on a basis of lies. When this economic web had been revealed, the harm had been done. The contrast between Robyn's children and the rest of the family was stark. The Brown clan, once heralded as a single dynasty, now lived as two families in the same house, sharing an everything or bank account, and the collapse, as Gwen and Mykelti disclosed, would be devastating. Cody's empire was never what it appeared to be. Behind the smile and the cameras, the Browns were living their financial nightmare. And the question now is simple. Who will be left alive when the truth is finally revealed? Behind every empire, there is a truth. Some hope will never see the light. For the Browns, that truth wasn't just concealed, it was buried beneath mountains of debt, hidden accounts, and choreographed deceit. Their own kids, Gwen and Mykelti, at last witnessed the unthinkable. Was the books that revealed a decade of deception, manipulation, and betrayal. What they learned wasn't just surprising, it was heart-wrenching. The empire of the family, the one Cody swore would last forever, was a mirage constructed on secrets and excesses at the cost of all others. When it was as if they were stepping into a secret library of betrayal. Every entry chronicled choices made behind their backs, of funds diverted from shared family priorities to finance Kody and Robyn's scheme for extravagance. On their testimony, the family LLC, intended to protect everyone's resources, had been turned into an instrument to benefit the patriarch and his pet wife alone. The Flagstaff mansion, which the fans perceived to be the image of their success, was financed partly by depleting the investment of other wives and by taking loans that none of the other members were aware of. Each piece of furniture bought, every landscaping job, and every luxury gadget was all carefully documented, yet all of these were paid for discreetly. Gwen remembers times of shock, explaining that it had been surreal to watch how deeply rooted the lie was in every aspect of life. Mykelti remembers silently crying at realizing that the family she trusted her entire life with wasn't cohesive at all. And it wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, loyalty, and the very foundation of family being systematically dismantled right before their eyes. Cody's management of Coyote Pass exposed the peak of his financial irresponsibility. The private loan against the property, purportedly taken without permission, had double-digit interest rates and balloon payments, just a matter of a few years away. Any efforts by Janelle or Christine to deal with it were ignored or buried. Cody set discussion in terms of God's timing, family harmony, and spiritual submission. But the ledger told a different tale. Funds diverted to meet interest on the loans no one else had signed. Each attempt to have a realistic planning discussion regarding infrastructure was greeted with circular reasoning, avoidance, or hostility. Robyn was not to be overlooked in this financial soap opera. As the latest wife, she was both beneficiary and company conspirator. While Cody presented the authority, spending was determined by Robyn's wishes. The wants of her children were foremost, and Christine and Janelle's families were ignored in their sacrifices. Vacations, extracurricular activities, and birthdays for Robyn's children were paid for extravagantly, while others were required to get by on much, much less. It spawned an emotional rift that Gwen identifies as corrosive, sowing seeds of resentment that had germinated for years. The cycle burn. When Janelle tried to ask for transparency, Cody used a dual strategy: aggression in public, gaslighting in private, and spiritual guilt to suppress dissent. Robyn, on the other hand, used victimhood as a cover. Tears, fear of insecurity, and tales of hardship diffused attention from their lifestyle. Together, they created a climate where asking reasonable financial questions was emotionally draining and relationally risky. The rest of the wives later backed down, taking care of their own finances in secret, unable to reach the truth. Think of finding out that the family you trusted with your life and future had been living two parallel economic realities all along, and that every sacrifice you made only funded someone else's indulgence. This is what Gwen and Mykelti discovered in the ledgers. The ledgers uncovered a stunning shell game. TLC deposits, meant for family expenses, were initially deposited into the main LLC account and then rapidly redirected into secondary accounts that were controlled solely by Cody and Robyn. From them, extravagant purchases were paid out, the mortgage on the mansion, upscale vacations, designer shopping binges, and credit card charges charged to the limit. On paper, the family was solid. In fact, the accounts painted a picture of hidden excess and mishandling. This session also reveals the human costs. Christine, Janelle, and Mary gave up dreams and emotional energy, contributing heavily to the family's economy, only to have their efforts redirected. Their children were raised in a system that selectively assessed needs, rendering them financially and emotionally marginalized. Gwen's testimony highlights the heartbreak. Economic inequality within one family breaks down trust, fosters resentment, and creates enduring wounds going far beyond dollars and cents. By the conclusion of this session, it is evident the Browns' public image of harmony and achievement was a skillfully constructed illusion. Cody's promised empire proved to be a house of deception, debt, and secrets. The ledger, now in the possession of Janelle's attorney, is not merely evidence. It is a revelation of deception, bound to destroy the foundation of the family and trigger a reckoning that cannot be denied. The battle lines are drawn, the books are on the table, the lies laid bare, and the kids have testified. But what happens when the court wants answers and Kody and Robyn must explain every extravagant buy, every hidden loan, and every betrayal on the stand? The day of reckoning is near, and it will be more heartbreaking than anyone can imagine. The courtroom was charged. Every gaze in the room was fixed on Cody Brown, the man who had envisioned an empire of money and domination for more than a decade. But the empire was an illusion created out of smoke and mirrors. And now, in the cold fluorescent lighting, with Janelle's attorneys ready and the daughters prepared to take the stand, the delicate illusion was about to disintegrate. Each secret loan, each extravagant spending, each clandestine ledger entry, the proof was irrefutable. For the first time, Cody could no longer conceal behind charm, bluff, or his beloved wife. The truth was now present, and it was going to tear down everything he had created. When proceedings commenced, the courtroom was transformed into one of spectacle, with decades of financial dishonesty. Janelle's lawyers introduced the records Gwen and Mykelti had discovered, which painted a frightening portrait of an emotionally divided but financially divided family. The ledgers followed every dollar, each transfer, each clandestine credit card purchase, but upscale vacations, high-ticket electronics, costly landscaping for the Flagstaff mansion, all paid for at the cost of Christine, Janelle, and Mary's extended families. Gwen and Mykelti spoke first from the stand, their voices trembling but firm. Gwen described the inequality she observed between Robyn's children and the other kids. Expensive gifts, college savings, recreational vehicles, all paid for by family, money that ought to have been divided equally. We were told the account was tight, she said, but we could see the reality. Cash was being spent on stuff we were never supposed to own. Mykelti's evidence substantiated the betrayal. She spoke of times when it had sunk in just how much her parents had concealed, the hidden loan against Coyote Pass, the several credit cards to their limit for lifestyle spending, and the grandiose mansion paid for with other wives' dowries. Imagine watching the man you trusted, your father, stand in court and realizing every promise he made, every vision of unity, was a lie meticulously funded by deception. The court next addressed the ledgers themselves. Lawyers carefully plotted the transfers, laying bare Kody and Robyn's money manipulation. TLC deposits, purportedly for family needs, were diverted into secondary accounts for personal gratification. Each withdrawal, each credit card bill paid, each excessive purchase accounted for. The judge leaned in, furrowed brow, as each entry showed a picture of methodical manipulation and mismanagement. Robyn's testimony, when she took the stand, was equally telling. Whereas her tears and claims of insecurity had earlier diverted attention, under oath the show began to come apart. Questions regarding particular expenditures, $1, Ling Scottsdale Resort, vacation, furnishings for the mansion, and private school fees for her children compelled her to respond unequivocally. The courtroom was no stage for acting. The emotional strategies that had paid off for decades with the wives and on TV no longer protected them from the law. And suddenly, the facade crumbled. The mansion was not a house. It was a symbol of betrayal. The empire was not an empire. It was a house of cards. And Cody, the patriarch, who promised dominion and harmony, stood revealed as the master builder of the family's destruction. Oh. The courtroom was charged with tension. Cody tried his usual tricks, deflection, pomposity, and vague descriptions of family harmony. But the judge and lawyers insisted on details. Every clandestine sale, every hidden loan, every penny spent on Robyn's world had to be justified. Cody could no longer hide behind spiritual jargon or sweet words. Every piece of paper, every account entry, every statement from the daughters was a nail in the coffin of the empire that he professed to lead. The evidence also mentioned the human toll. Christine, Janelle, and Mary's sacrifices over the years, their thrift, budgeting, and emotional labor had been methodically eroded. Their children had lived under an era of unfairness, seeing money they worked for or helped earn go to support a parallel family existence. Gwen described how this resulted in resentment, distrust, and emotional disconnection. It wasn't about money, she said. It was the message, our needs didn't matter. At the end of the session, the legal consequences were staggering. The proof provided left no doubt. Kody and Robyn had both wasted family assets, borrowed money without approval, and established a system of finance that benefited one branch of the family at the expense of the others. Janelle's suit was more than a monetary claim. It was a reckoning, a judicial laying bare of years of fraud, and the start of a process that threatened to tear apart all Cody and Robyn had constructed. Courtroom lights shone on more than paper. They shone on truth. Cody's kingdom of deceit was crumbling. The books were unforgiving, and the daughter's testimony bore decades of deception. But the best was yet to come, because what the court was about to discover next might alter not only money, but the very heritage of the Brown family. Picture a decade of secrets suddenly exposed to the harsh light of forensic analysis. Cody Brown's world of manipulation, charm, and make-believe was on the verge of impacting hard figures and cold, feudable facts. Each pricey buy, each clandestine loan, each secret account, all followed, all recorded. For years, he had manipulated, rerouted, and managed the finances of the family, fashioning a world where only one limb of the family prospered. Now there were forensic accountants present, with spreadsheets, bank statements, and unbending logic. And nothing could hide in the shadows. The courtroom had now become a battlefield where figures spouted louder than words. Forensic accountants started their scrupulous analysis, following the money trail of TLC payments, real estate sales, and family LLC funds into secret accounts. What was revealed was staggering. A 10-year course of one-sided fiscal choices by Cody and Robyn, diverting money from Christine, Janelle, and Mary into supporting a lifestyle that was unsustainable and unfair. The records uncovered the entire magnitude of the Coyote Pass disaster. The balloon structures, the interest payments, and the private loan were not merely irresponsible. They were disastrous. The accountants estimated the servicing cost of that loan over the years, including late charges, compounding interest, and the depletion of monthly TLC revenue. It had been an economic time bomb, and the daughters had been correct all along. Each dollar spent on Robyn's house or lifestyle took away from their futures. Each ledger entry had a story to tell. Each transfer screamed betrayal. And for Cody, the man who had been the unshakable patriarch, there was no respite. The numbers lied not, they damned him. The mansion, once a badge of advanced status, was now disclosed as a gilded cage of debt. Forensic examination revealed multiple mortgages, home equity lines against unsold Vegas homes, and credit cards maxed out to the limit, all fueling a consumption cycle and ego gratification. The analysts followed payments for high-end furniture, designer closets, and lavish vacations, expenses that had no legitimate nexus with the Knight family, LLC, or the well-being of the non-Robyn children. Robyn's materialism and spendthrift spending, due to fear, were exposed. The accountants recorded her habits of huge spending, her dependence on Cody to finance her wants, and the deliberate placement of her children in a position to get the lion's share of attention. Janelle, Mary, and Christine's inputs, their sacrifices, savings, and meticulous budgeting were manipulated out of the way. The disparity was unbelievable. One family living in excess, the others barely getting by, even though they put in the same jug. Here was the appalling reality. Cody's empire had not been created through vision or strategy. It had been created through deception, favoritism, and financial chicanery. The patriarch had ruined his own kin in order to maintain a sham. The forensic records also indicated psychological manipulation and financial dominance. Cody had employed faith, promises of family reunions, and appeals to God's timing to conceal his mismanagement. Robyn's crying and claimed insecurities again diverted responsibility, making it a perfect storm of control and emotional coercion. The accountant's reports, however, were objective and unassailable, every dollar traced, every transaction itemized, every diversion itemized. Still more informative were the shell accounts. Funds would be deposited into the primary family LLC account, only to be quickly sent to secondary accounts that were in the sole control of Cody and Robyn. From these accounts, personal expenditures were made. This organized concealment made it so that only a handful of the family members ever had access to the total financial picture, fostering inequality while keeping up appearances of unity. By the halfway point of the session, the court was stunned. The sheer scale of debt, more than $1 million when considering concealed loans, mortgage payments, and spiraling high-interest credit, was now undeniable. The analysts laid out scenarios of bankruptcy, enforced sales, and asset dispositions, each of which painted a catastrophic scenario for Cody and Robyn. They were ensnared in a golden cage of their own, to be humiliated publicly and ruined financially. And the human cost was just as horrific. Christine's, Janelle's, and Mary's children had grown up seeing imbalances that were emotionally devastating. Weddings, birthdays, college money, and simple essentials were sacrificed, while Robyn's kids were indulged in every need. The evidence, along with forensic evidence, uncovered a system developed not for family success, but for ego and favoritism maintenance. While the forensic files were exposed, Cody's perfect veneer collapsed. Figures don't lie, and now everyone knew the truth. The empire was built on smoke and mirrors. The queen's throne was funded through treachery, and the patriarch's legacy teetered on the edge of ruin. Yet despite all this proof, the ultimate legal reckoning was yet to come, one that would determine the final destination of the Brown family fortune. Following years of deceit, lies, and fiscal mismanagement, the truth could no longer be kept under wraps. Cody Brown's empire, the mansion, the property, the painstakingly constructed illusion of affluence, was collapsing in on itself. The lawsuits, the forensic audits, the unassailable evidence from the family books, it all led to a single surefire conclusion: complete collapse. What had appeared to be a prosperous dynasty turned out to be a house of cards, based on lies, nepotism, and unaffordable debt. Cody and Robyn were now the ultimate ones to be held accountable, and everything would never again be the same. The courtroom was charged. Attorneys shuffled boxes of papers while Cody sat, his customary swagger replaced with strained silence. The forensic accountant's report was thrown open. More than $1 million in debt, several leveraged assets, charge cards maxed out, and years of unauthorized loans. The numbers were breathtaking, the consequences catastrophic. The secret loan on Coyote Pass, kept for years in secret from the other wives, was the linchpin to the destruction. The balloon payment fell due, and there was no liquid capital to meet it. Selling the property would scarcely dent the debt. The mansion, another huge asset, was just as unsellable without precipitating disastrous losses. All avenues led to fiscal disaster, and the truth was finally dawning. The empire was not viable, the fantasy of riches over. Every ledger, every bank statement, every secret transaction hinted at one inescapable reality: the kingdom of the Brown family was broke, and the king and queen were revealed for the first time in decades. Robyn's tears, once an instrument of emotional manipulation, now held another connotation. With the threat of losing the mansion, the status, and the well-oiled lifestyle she had come to rely upon, she could no longer depend on melodrama. The court did not care about emotions, it cared about facts. The extravagant vacations, designer shopping, and luxurious furnishings were all well documented, with no window for excuses. In contrast, the daughter's testimony was devastating. Gwen and Mykelti detailed the disparity of resources with specific examples: weddings on tight budgets, college costs disregarded, and daily sacrifices demanded of Christine's, Janelle's, and Mary's kids, but not of Robyn's kids. The mechanism Cody and Robyn had established, favoritism repackaged as family cohesion, had proven to be a calculated, decades-old cycle of Cody's kingdom of domination, Robyn's materialistic throne, and the veneer of family harmony. All were crumbling beneath the insistent pressure of reality. The process of law proceeded to discovery. All the bank accounts, credit cards, and ledger entries were examined under oath. Cody, the master of deflection, could no longer deflect, divert, or gaslight. Each inquiry was straightforward, and every unauthorized transaction was explained. Next, the courtroom was transformed into a platform of responsibility, stripping years of lying bare. For Mary, the result was near anticlimactic. Her prudence had protected her from the catastrophe. The bed and breakfast, the LuLaRoe enterprise, and her meticulous independence financially allowed her to ride out the storm. Christine's flight and Janelle's battle in court had put them as well in a position to survive, though not without confronting the emotional wounds inflicted over years of betrayal. The financial reality was most painful for Cody and Robyn. Bankruptcy was a real threat. Liquidating assets would mean losing the mansion, their cars, and perhaps Coyote Pass. Their extravagant way of life, which had characterized them for more than a decade, was slipping away in front of them. For Robyn, it was a private shame. For Cody, a public embarrassment of failed management. The last hour in court was almost movie-like. While the judge went over the forensic evidence and listened to the daughter's testimonies, the verdict was certain. Cody and Robyn had squandered family holdings, put themselves first, and betrayed both their husbands and their children. The empire had fallen nowhere from outside forces, but from within, by corruption and lies. Brown family drama, once one of glamour and polygamous aspiration, came to an end in shambles. The mansion remains standing, but it's a testament now to the mismanagement of finances and family betrayal. Cody's grip is over, Robyn's throne is over, and the legacy of lies has been laid bare for the world to view. The empire is over, and the consequences will be remembered as a cautionary tale about greed, ego, and a high price of lying.